All right, team, I am going to remind you of some things when it comes to finishing up your project. So I am in Civil 3D here. And I'm getting the angry pop-up messages. I'm going to go open. I'm going to grab an example design. And I'm going to bring it in. So I'm just using an example here. If you're on a new computer, you're going to get this pop-up, right? It is telling you that it can't find your XREF title block, and that's okay. I'm going to say ignore unresolved references for now, and I'm actually going to go to my XREF manager, and I can always get there by typing XREF. And I'm actually going to detach. I'm going to right-click on that title block, and I'm going to detach. I'm going to show you a couple different things. So I've got a design here, and I've got my model in model space. And there's a couple things I want to draw your attention to. One is, oh, these labels are so nice, but as soon as you go to layout, they're not looking so great. The other thing that is that can happen sometimes is I want you to notice the difference between layout 1 and layout 2. In layout 1, you're missing the outline for your design, for your model. That is called the viewport, and that's what allows you to sort of move this around, right? So we're going to talk about what happens if that goes away, and then we're going to deal with the fact that a lot of these labels look really big. And I'm showing you on a specific computer. Every computer has slightly different settings, and so you will need to sort of adjust. Each of those computers has slightly different settings, just like you would see in the real world. So you will need to adjust, but that's okay. So let's start by saying, okay, what happens? I'm actually going to get rid of layout 2. What happens if you're in the situation where you lose your viewport? I'm going to say create a new layout. It's pretty easy to do. I just clicked layout 2, and all of a sudden I have a viewport back. And as a reminder, I can click this and I can zoom in until my design is mostly in the view, double click outside. All right, and we'll need to resize that and all that good stuff. All right, so you need to bring in your title block again, right? Of course you do. So let's XREF. I just grabbed a random title block. So I'm going to attach DWG and just remind you about how to do this. Let's grab this one. Looks great. There's a couple different ways you can do this. So one way is to click the scale and insertion point as both specify on screen, but some folks have been having an issue with scale. So I'm going to say, give me a uniform scale. Oh, actually, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go back, and before I bring in my XREF, I'm going to set my layout. Page setup manager, I am in layout 2. I'm going to say modify. I want to make sure I have high quality print selected. I am on an Arch E. I want to plot extents. I want to fit to paper. I want to center the plot, and we're going to say, okay. So this made it bigger. Great, awesome, yeehaw. Now I can sort of move this title block edges around, right? My viewport, I can change where that is. Okay, let's go back to XREF again. Let's XREF. Now we're going to bring in our title block now that we have our page set up. So we're going to go to attach DWG and get this nice pop-up. We're going to grab our title block. And like we were saying before, you can specify the scale on screen, but sometimes it can be on screen, excuse me. It can be a little finicky. So if you're running into that, my recommendation is uncheck this, say, make this a uniform scale, and say, okay. And then what you want to do is you want to pay attention to where your cursor is. This one is at the bottom right of the image. So sometimes it'll come in at the top left, in which case you want to click there, but this guy is bottom right. So I'm going to click down here at the bottom right. And you're like, why would you do that? That thing is so big. That's really weird. So then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select this again. I'm going to select my title block. I'm going to close my external reference palette. I'm going to go home and I'm going to say scale right here. I'm going to look at the prompts, specify base point. So I'm going to zoom in, if it'll let me, there we go, down. And I'm just going to grab this as the base point down here. I'm going to zoom a little bit out till I can see this whole view. And now I have a lot more control over setting up the scale for my title block. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to change my viewport here so it is nicely aligned. With my edges. And then you're going to want to make sure that you have information entered here. So as a reminder, you can detext in here. So name, client information, and specify the rotation. I want it right there. I'm going to say client info, Scrooge. Oh, too many zeros. McBarlow. And oop, I did my escape. Let's do that again. Specify start point up here. Specify rotation. Scrooge, McBarlow. You can always enter and then, oh. Whoa. Came in really big. We don't like that. So we can always scale that, right? And scale, specify base point. Let's make that a more reasonable height. There we go. We can move it. And if you're getting weird jumpy things like that, that's probably ortho. Let's turn that off. There we go. Nice. And then if you want things to be somewhat the same, right, we could just copy and select that. And we can move this down here. We can double click in here and say 111 Angry Lane, so on and so forth. You got it. Okay, so let's come back to this drawing now. As you're looking at this, you're probably like, holy moly, what the heck is happening with the labels? This has to do with our scale and with has to do with our scale and has to do with our how we set up layout and things like that. So again, I'm just going to save, make sure everything is okay. This is where we're actually going to use tool space. If you can't find tool space, or if you don't have the tool space pop-up, you can always go home and click tool space here. Sometimes tool space likes to disappear. If that's the case, you can always just shut down Civil 3D, save your stuff and reopen it. And a lot of times it'll pop back up. For some reason, people will sometimes click here and it'll just sort of disappear. That's okay. And under Civil 3D tool space, we've used Prospector before, but what we care about for this exercise are the settings. So I'm going to take you back into model space for a second. And I'm going to remind you about something that we did with our points. If I click on this bearing here, select it, and then right click to get properties, what I can find is information about what this is. And so this particular property, let's see, general segment label, it is a line. All right, let's look at the lot. I'm going to select the lot. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say properties, layer, line type. It varies, true color by layer. All right. If I go here to parcel, oh gosh. It's going to tell you the style is a lot. It's going to tell you the parcel area is labeled as standard. Yours might be different than that. Keep that in mind. So this is giving you some information about how things are labeled. It's giving you some information about how things are labeled, which is important to keep in mind. So what I am going to do is under settings. Let's start with the parcels here. So let's go to layout 2. We got layout 2 here. We want to change the size of those lot labels. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to parcels. And under parcels, we're going to go to label styles. And when we're labeling those lots, we're not labeling lines or curves, we're labeling areas. And there you see, when we went under properties, it was telling us it was a standard label. And so here I have standard here. Now this is important. Your labels might be called something different. They might be called something different. So you need to pay attention to this. And at the very least, you can always trial and error if you have a couple of different styles listed. Most of your styles will be something like name, area in square feet, and acres. So mine is called standard for this particular example. Yours might be called something different. All I'm going to do is select it, right click, say edit. And then what I can do under here is under layout, I can change the text height. So I'm going to change this to 0.05 and I'm going to say apply. And you just noticed everything got a little tinier. And maybe I like that, or maybe I want to make it a little tinier. I can say apply. And all of a sudden, we're getting some nicely sized text labels. So you can keep changing those or any of the other labels in your setup using this functionality. All right, now we want to find where our bearings are located. Bearings are usually lines. So I'm going to go under general label styles, lines, and I'm going to grab this. And what's important for this, for your bearings, is under layout, you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, oh, I just changed this right here. And you're going to say, okay, do that. And nothing changes. They're still massive. And so the important thing here is we have different components when we label bearings. We have a direction arrow. So let's try reducing the size of the direction arrow. All right, I just saw a change. Let's change the bearing. Again, I'm going to go 0.025. And all of a sudden, we're changing things. And we also have a distance. So let's go with a 0.025 and say apply. It is okay if these are tiny. That is okay if these are tiny. Like even those arrows still look a little too big. So I'm going to edit those. I don't like those arrows being so big. I'm going to make them 0.01. All right. So it is important to keep in mind, right, that you are going to, oh, the length, the direction area is still really big. Let's change that guy. Yeah, there we go. Maybe 0.01 is too small. Let's make them 0.05. Okay. Yeah, so now when we zoom in, yes, this looks a little bit better. They're still pretty big. You could still probably make them tinier, right? This is up to you to make it look good. Don't worry about making them look too small. We're assuming that this is a 36-inch or 3 feet by 48-inch or 4 foot big poster that we would print out. So in this case, it is okay that things are small, right? It is okay to label them as very, very small. Because I will be able to get your PDF and zoom in on things. This has been your introduction and reminders to setting up your layout. I hope that this helps. I hope this gives you some ideas as you move into the final stretch of making things look good. And I'm just really excited to see your designs. Yeah, impress me, make me proud. Way to go, team.